The last question comes from Chris. Please help with suggestions for eliminating, reducing, or dealing with latency. All right, so latency is the time it takes for the computer to process an incoming audio signal and then put it out to the output. An audio interface is always going to have a bit of latency. There is often a switch on the device or maybe a software setting so that you can listen to the preamps directly into the outputs. Zero latency monitoring or direct monitoring, that's great, but you can't record through plugins with that unless the box itself has some sort of DSP where it runs plugins inside of the audio interface with its own dedicated processor. Without that, you're always limited by the block size of the audio device. Audio is processed in blocks. It's not processed one sample at a time in a continuous stream. It's processed in chunks, also called a block or a buffer. You can change that block size to be a very small amount of time, and that reduces the latency. But that increases the CPU load, and you get glitches, crackles, and possibly that will affect the actual recording, and you don't want that. You don't want to have glitches in the actual recorded files. So you need to find a good balance for low latency monitoring and also stability. Inside the Reaper session, you can also get latency from plugins. So every plugin needs a certain amount of time to actually process that audio. A lot of plugins are zero latency, but some of them could be like 64, 1024, things like that. If the amount of time that that plugin needs to process the audio is not less than your audio buffer size, it's going to take 2 buffers to get that out. So you don't want that either. Watch out for plugins on the master effects chain. All of your audio has to go through there. That's going to delay everything, and you're going to have terrible latency. If you can record without plugins, that's the best situation. If you need to record with plugins, and a lot of us do, like virtual instruments and things like that, you want to have as few plugins in the chain as possible. So disable anything on the master track, especially things like linear phase EQs or mastering limiters. Those will always give you latency. And just try to find a good balance of low latency performance and stability. For my system, I run a FireWire interface on a fairly beefy i7 iMac, and I can always run that at 64 samples pretty much all day. And having a good audio interface with a fast connection, USB 3, FireWire, Thunderbolt, they can often provide better latency than USB 2.